So I've been sitting on making this video for a month or two now, mostly because I wanted to gather as much of the facts as I could about this relatively recent but substantial change rolled out to the LEGO Collectible Minifigure Series. I know there are a lot of videos out there about this subject specifically, but it feels like everybody has either missed the point or is just using the obvious outrage bait that came with the news of the bags transitioning to boxes. But for this video, I want to set aside that point so we can really take a look into what's been personally bothering me and what I think has a greater impact on the community as a whole when it comes to the CMF line. As you might have already known, LEGO has been playing with the idea of blind boxes since the days of LEGO Video in 2021. Fast forward to late 2023, and we received our second licensed Marvel CMF in the box style, which just so happened to also be the first series rolled out with boxes instead of foil bags. We started to learn a lot more about this business model, especially now in 2024 after receiving the anticipated Series 25 in the same box format. We've come to learn that there's a host of issues that came with this series, which couldn't have been predicted when LEGO had experimented with the box layout in the past. The most glaring issue is the lack of the ability to feel the contents of the box, which is kind of upsetting because a lot of that in-store purchasing experience was the fun of testing your skills on being able to feel out and predict which minifigures you received. Secondly, it seems that consumers have reacted to the new packaging type extremely poorly, so much so that some have resorted to breaking open the contents of the box just to reveal what's inside. Stores, of course, have tried to fight back on consumer delinquency by placing the figures in anti-tamper or anti-theft casings. By the way, I'd like to remind you that it's actually wild that we live in a timeline where this issue has gotten so bad that they lock $5 relatively low-value items behind security tags. This is speculative, but I think that LEGO was probably predicting or trying to test the reaction to the tampering of their products in retail years earlier with video bandmates and found that there wasn't a difference in tampering or theft between package types. But they didn't actually account for the fact that there are more people who actively seek out licensed and mainline CMFs, which are arguably more popular than a newly greenlit gimmicky original theme. I think we're seeing a lot more of this type of negative behavior going on with the box model. It feels rigged. Consumers feel cheated that they can't use any sort of skill to figure out what's in the contents of the box. I'm not saying it's justified to destroy merchandise, but clearly this is a very prevalent mindset that an alarming amount of people have. I'm not going to go too far into the intricacies of the current state of the world, but I feel that you can't make a change like this that is so anti-consumer and not expect the consumer to lash out. We live in a time where a lot of essentials are unnecessarily expensive, and customers of LEGO don't really want to feel like they've been unnecessarily conned in yet another financial aspect, which lies in their entertainment budget. It encourages consumers into blindly buying more products than they really need. In a way, yeah, I know that's definitely the obvious business model when it comes to CMFs ever since their inception. But before this change, it was a lot easier to skirt past wasting money on duplicates or unwanted figures that you don't need. I'll get back more into this point of product waste later, but I do want to touch on the fact that I feel that this change in box model is distasteful and comes off as both tone deaf and very blatant greenwashing. What I'm trying to say is that LEGO approached this topic in a very deceptive way by stating that the change from foil bags to boxes was out of concerns with their environmental initiative. I know that they can't necessarily admit that this was a change enacted to sell more duplicate products, but it just feels really tone deaf that there's a lack of transparency with the fans regarding the true reason for the change. They would have been better off by not stating anything at all, because I don't think fans are genuinely this naive. There is an entirely different issue which I will only briefly touch on since this video is starting to get a little unnecessarily long, but if you look at the product portfolio of figures in each CMF, their aftermarket values are not created equally, and I think LEGO knows this and actively uses this to their advantage. I know I'm attributing a lot of malice and assuming a lot of things about LEGO as a company, but I feel like I've built a big enough case about this that it feels reasonable to suggest that LEGO is filling their CMF lineups with a majority of undesirable figures in order to lessen the chances of obtaining the ones you want. It is no secret that in Series 25, everyone wants the GOAT and Basil the Batlord. These are two extremely unique figures that have a huge cultural impact on LEGO's fan base. I'm not saying that the rest of the CMFs are bad, but you can't argue that these two aren't the most desirable figures in the latest series. The value of these figures after unpacking casing is worth double for the goat herder and nearly quadruple for Basil, while most of the other CMFs actually depreciate the moment that you open them. No CMF figure is equal in value, and I think that's a fact that most fans have to acknowledge. I know that at least one person is going to go into the comments and say, well, actually, I do like every figure from the series. Great. You're in the vocal minority of people who will collect all 12, but that argument still doesn't address that there is a clear aftermarket price difference between figures. I'd like to remind you that virtually every single CMF besides the goat and Basil are worth less the moment that you open them. So what's the solution to this? Do we get rid of CMFs altogether? Should we demand a change back to foil bags? Well, that question is a lot harder for me to fairly evaluate and answer diplomatically. With the current series, the best way to evaluate the contents of the box is either through scanning or weighing. I won't get too much into that, as I'm sure if you're here you already know this information. My answer is that I think that the debate between the boxes and foil bags is irrelevant, and that the issue of tampering with the boxes will ultimately subside. The real issue to me has always been here since the beginning of the first CMF series. Not all CMFs are perceived as equally valuable, and there's a notable difference in their aftermarket value. I believe that LEGO should aim to release more consistently high-quality CMF series. In fact, they pretty much are doing this with the release of the Dungeons & Dragons CMF. Unfortunately, I can't show you images of the series since they are considered a leak, and I really don't want to set any precedent for showing leaks. But I think it's a perfect example of a series done right. Not a single figure is undesirable, and it looks like they all could hold their own value. I feel that LEGO could significantly reduce buyer's remorse by doing this, since even if a customer ends up with a duplicate in any series, the figure would still hold enough value to be easily traded for another. This approach could enhance overall consumer satisfaction, as fans wouldn't feel shortchanged when acquiring a less sought after figure. It just doesn't feel fair to me for someone to end up buying a $5 product and instantly end up in a deficit where the item is worth $2 or $3 less. So I know this was a longer video than what I usually put out. Thanks for sticking with me if you made it this far. I just feel like a lot of this had to be said. I love LEGO as a product, and for the most part, I agree with their values as a company. I'd even go as far as to say that they have a lot of good virtues and a great company culture, but I have a lot of opinions about this issue, and I feel like there are some things that could really change when it comes to the collectible figures. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for now. I'll see you guys in the next video.